Is there a feud between Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli? It's been spoken of in the past. Is it bubbling to the surface, or is this just an equation that's being badly handled by the players and the administration? I've got some really sharp insights on the Newstrack. I want to welcome Indian cricketing legend and India Today's cricket expert, Sunil Gavaskar. He's one-time colleague in the team. Kirti Azad joins us on this broadcast as well. One of India's foremost writers and cricket Ayaz Menon is with us. Nikhil Chopra is with us, and two of the biggest cricket aficionados in our newsroom, Vikrant Gupta and Rajdeep Sardesai. Rajdeep, ironically, I just remembered we had Mr. Gavaskar and you talking about the same issue, and we're back once again discussing whether the rift between Kohli and Rohit Sharma is now simmering to the surface in a way that you simply can't run away from the story.
Probably because, Rahul, you find it far more interesting and exciting than discussing Narendra Modi or Rahul Gandhi. You know, Kaun Banega Pradhan Mantri seems less interesting at the moment than Kaun Banega Kaptan. But look, the manner in which it's played out, as you rightly said, is unfortunate. But there is a history to it, and that's where Mr. Gavaskar comes. Let's be honest, in the 1980s, everyone who was observing Indian cricket thought there was this huge rift between Mr. Gavaskar and Mr. Kapil Dev. And when Kapil Dev was dropped after that shot that he played against England in 1984, people were convinced Mr. Gavaskar was behind him, behind the whole decision. It took 25 years later that I finally understood that Mr. Gavaskar had nothing to do with it. But in that period, everyone was convinced that Mr. Gavaskar was behind the dropping of Kapil Dev. And there were these two giants of Indian cricket like Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli have. And just one more thing, this goes back historically, go back to 1932, the first test in which India played. Who Kaun Banega Kaptan was a big issue. Originally, Maharaja of Patiala was to go. Then it was for he and Vizianagaram, the two Maharajas. Both eventually didn't go. Then Limdi and Porbandar went. Porbandar was to be the captain. He was simply not good enough. And to his great credit, before the match at Lord's, realized that he was not good enough and made C.K. Naidu was the best Indian player at the time, the captain. So the captaincy has always been a crown of thorns, and therefore always interesting for cricket observers ki kaun banega kaptan. And then when you have these two figures like Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, one the incumbent, the other the challenger, it makes for very interesting viewing. And then what's happened in the last 24 hours with Rohit dropping out of the test match and Virat now probably not playing one-day cricket, you wonder whether this is a repeat of what happened with Mr. Gavaskar and Kapil Dev in the 1980s. Is there smoke or is there some fire?
Well, there's definitely smoke. Is there a fire below it or not? That's the critical question. Kirti Azad, I've heard from Mr. Gavaskar on this issue earlier, so I want to come to you first. You saw what Mohammad Azharuddin said. This has just been spoken of as, one of those dressing room tales which do the rounds. The reporters talk about it, but nothing is ever known for sure because the two players, to their credit, have never spoken about it in public. Are you, like Mohammad Azharuddin, convinced that Kohli's unavailability for the one-day internationals, Rohit's unavailability for the test, really fuels the question about whether all is well between the two top marquee players in Team India?
I won't at all comment on either of the two great players of India, but a former great player, that is Mohammad Azharuddin. Azharuddin is the president of the Hyderabad Cricket Association, which in turn is a member of the BCCI. And once he comes out with such a statement, that means he knows what is going inside the BCCI. And if there is a rift at all, then what they have done to resolve it. Because such kind of statements, which is basically a speculation, because I think these are one of the two of the greatest cricketers that are born. I mean, we have Sunny. I had the good fortune of having played under him and under Kapil also, who was basically a contemporary. We were together. And Sunny we're meeting on the 21st for the red carpet of our 83 movie. Now, when a person like Azharuddin comes out with a statement like that, so till the BCCI denies it, I would say that this is what the BCCI stand is. Because somebody coming up with the offer of the remark, I can understand. I mean, you talked about Sunny Bhai or Kapil Dev. I never saw it. I mean, my first trip to Australia, I never saw there was any kind of animosity between Sunny Bhai or with Kapil. And I think he, as a senior, always guided us. There was nothing of the sorts. Yes, people used to say North versus West and Mumbai versus Delhi. Yes, we were coming up. We had superb rivalry. But that stayed on the field, and that was it. It never came out of the field. So I feel My question would be that let Azharuddin come forward and let the BCCI say whether what he has said is right or wrong, whether there is a rift or not, because this is not good for the morale of the side. We're going to play in South Africa. South Africa is a different ball game altogether. The bouncy, hard, good, nice tracks. They have good fast bowlers. It's going to be tough. So it's not good for the morale of the side. So please ask Azharuddin to clarify, and in turn the BCCI to tell us whether he's telling us the truth or not.
Mr. Gavaskar, between the last time we spoke and now, do you think that this issue has been allowed to simmer, should have been better handled? And South Africa isn't a normal tour. This is one of the last frontiers which India needs to conquer and do well across all formats to demonstrate their current standing in world cricket. Should this have been handled better? And do you think that all these stories, all these comments by the likes of Azharuddin are just making a situation worse?
Well, the question is there anything simmering at all? I mean,
Correct.
like Rajdeep said, in the 1980s, and now Kirti has spoken about it, in the 1980s, there was this talk, right, about Kapil and me. Who started the talk? Did the players start it? No. You guys started it. You guys in the media, because you wanted something different. You didn't want something that was happening on the field to take, take precedence.
Azhar started it in this case. It's not the media, it's not the likes of Virat.
No, fair enough. That's it. But I'm just trying to say that, look, I understand you got to get your TRPs, you got to get, your eyeballs or whatever you call it. And sometimes, this seems a lot more exciting. So unless both the players come out with something that, look, we should not jump to conclusions. Yes, Azharuddin has said something. If Azhar has got some inside information as to actually what has happened, then I think Azharuddin should be the one who should be coming out and telling us, look, this is what has happened. Till then, I will give the benefit of the doubt to both the players, because both the players have served Indian cricket brilliantly, and I don't think that it is fair at all for any one of us, without having exact information, to be pointing fingers at either of them.
It's Azharuddin who lit this fire, and Vikrant spends his entire day speaking to the powers that be at the BCCI and players present and former in the Indian team. You give us your best insight, because we've seen on social media Kohli fans very clearly upset with the news break that we put out, saying that Kohli would be dropped as one-day captain. He didn't want to step down. He thought he'd continue as one-day and test. It's the BCCI that pushed this. That didn't go down well with him. Is he then, in some ways, even if he's not unwell, just saying, okay, let me just back off, go play on these bouncy, tough pitches and let's see what happens?
It's the timing of the story that has come out in the morning. Coming out one day after Rohit Sharma was out of the South African test matches because of the hamstring injury, which nobody had known till the time the press release came. We all thought it was the finger injury. It turned out to be a hamstring injury, and he was ruled out for the test matches where Virat would be the captain. Now, a hamstring normally takes about 4 to 6 weeks to heal. We don't know what grade it is, and 4 to 6 weeks would have meant missing the ODIs as well, for which he's been appointed the captain. But they are saying that it's going to heal in 3 weeks, I don't know how, and he'll be back for the ODIs. So you had the conspiracy theory. In the morning you wake up and you read Times of India, and it says that Virat Kohli has told the board that he's not going to play the ODIs because of his daughter's birthday. Incidentally, daughter's birthday is on the 11th of January. Factually, that is incorrect, the story, because 11th of January, Virat Kohli would be starting what would turn out to be his 100th test match in Cape Town. So the ODIs only start on the 19th. I got to know later that Virat indeed did speak to the BCCI, but not yesterday or day before, or after he was sacked as the ODI captain. This was much before that. And he had expressed his desire to take a break from the ODIs.
Is he sulking because he's no longer captain?
No, that this is...
But he knew the writing on the wall by then.
Nobody accepts the writing on the wall, Rahul, because again, I would give him the benefit of the doubt, because I don't think the BCCI dealt with it in a dignified manner. Here's this captain who's done well for the country. Yes, you sack him. In this present time, and like Sunny Bhai said, the 80s or the 70s or the 30s, this is 2021. We're approaching 2022. Virat Kohli, Saurav Ganguly comes out and gives interviews one day after he's been sacked, saying that we did tell Virat not to quit the T20 captaincy. Otherwise, it would have been untenable. We needed a common captain for both the white ball cricket, which is fine. But did Virat actually speak to Saurav on this? Because Virat's coach, Kohli-Sharma, who's normally very docile, doesn't say anything, also gave an interview saying, oh, this is a surprise for me. I don't think Saurav ever spoke to Virat. Now, both the parties, somebody's lying, somebody's not. Now, if you're dealing with somebody like Virat and Rohit and Rahul Dravid, who's the new coach, and you should have had Chetan Sharma, chief selector, board president Saurav Ganguly, Jai Shah, they should have sat together. Not the day of the meeting, before that. You brief Virat, this is our vision going forward. Why do you have to convey that in a press conference or through a press release? Sit with him, tell him. It's like the early stage of cancer. The doctor tells you you've got cancer and you don't accept it. You say, "Mujhe nahi ho sakta." So I think Virat is in that phase. Mere saath aisa nahi ho sakta. I can't be sacked the captain. But the timing of the story makes us assume that Virat has pulled out now. Even though the fact is, this is much before the captaincy was taken away from him. He had told the BCCI that, I'm not going to defend him. Things might change because there's a press conference happening tomorrow, 1 o'clock.
No, but why should he not play in South Africa? It's one of the toughest tours for an Indian team, and you want your best players out there, regardless of who's captain. Ayaz Menon, you've seen many such fights, past and present. First, give us your best sense. We've heard from Rajdeep, we've heard from Vikrant, your best sense of what's happening. Is there a fight which is for real, or is the media and social media just making this up?
Well, look, we mentioned about no smoke without fire. So I would imagine, look, I think whatever else happens, these are very dramatic or melodramatic developments which have taken place over the last 10, 15 days or maybe even less than that. And I think it is messy for Indian cricket. Because without Rohit Sharma being in the test squad, and remember, India have never won a series in South Africa, this looked like a very good time. And then now, because Rohit has been your best batsman for the past 2 years, if he's not there, it diminishes your prospects of winning that series. And if Virat is not playing the ODI series, everybody talks about his lean shot and that he's going through a rough time and etc. etc. In test matches, yes. I don't think he's had a terrible time. It's not a typical lean shot. He's looked very good when he's batting. He's not getting the big runs. And he's, the first mistake he makes is his last. But in ODIs, we all know what Virat's caliber is. So if Virat is not there, if Rohit is going to be the captain, then he is going to miss Virat's presence. That's a given. What I am concerned about is that why has this mess happened? And I trace it back to the letter, the press release made, which Vikrant has, spoken about when Virat is replaced as the ODI captain. That thing comes right at the end of the press release, almost in a very disdainful, matter-of-fact manner. This guy he's been a giant in international cricket. At least a word of thanks. Can't you even give a word of thanks that you've done so much for Indian cricket? We thank you for your captaincy, for your batting. And then, of course, I think Virat would have sensed, everybody would have sensed that white ball captaincy and red ball captaincy is going to be divided. How behind the scenes things have transpired is the issue. The next day, the BCCI president, Saurav Ganguly, comes and, explains why the decision was made. And one of the things which he says, quite frankly, baffles me. He said that they discussed the T20 captaincy and he told Virat, don't give it up. He was persuading Virat to continue. Are we to understand that had Virat agreed to continue with the T20 captaincy, Rohit Sharma would not have been made the captain of the T20 team or the ODI team? What the hell is happening? So I think there is a lack of clarity in communication. A lot of things are being done and said with last minute tweaks and twists and turns, which is not helping anybody's cause. I don't think that, players will have differences. The dressing room is made up of individuals. We talk of team spirit. Team spirit does not mean that people will not think differently. Team spirit means when they enter the field, they will play for the common cause. But they can have differences. And I'm sure that Virat and Rohit, if they've had differences when they're onto the field, they put those differences behind. The point is, how are these differences managed outside of the playing field so that it does not, flare up into something bigger? That really is the big thing. for the administration to get into. And I think there's a task on hand for Saurav Ganguly, he's an iconic figure in Indian cricket. He's been through these situations earlier. It's up to him to address this. And now he's got, of course, Rahul Dravid as the chief coach. I think willy-nilly we have a crisis on hand. Whether Rohit and Virat have come out and explained this or not, this is a major series for Rohit Sharma. Being in the South Africa, he would miss not being playing the test matches because in the form of his life. And when you're in the form of your life, you don't want to miss a single match because this is your time when you reap what you have sown over so many years. So too Virat. He may be going through not getting those big scores, but these are he's 33. He's not 23. He also knows that time is running out for him. He needs to go out there and get those big scores. So I don't think they will just give up playing matches for the heck of it. There might be differences, but they need to be handled very tactfully and I'm not saying diplomatically, but I think they need to be handled very intelligently and sensitively.
Well, this is akin to the situation that you had in the late 90s with Mahesh Bhupathi and Leander Paes. Leander was the senior one. Mahesh Bhupathi was coming up the ranks and they won Grand Slams together. For Indians on the tennis field, it was a huge achievement. They started winning. And there were one or two differences that they had. And camp Leander pulled Leander away from camp Mahesh Bhupathi, and they were never the same again. So normally what happens is if you let the differences of opinion linger on for a while, and there's nobody to control that, I think that's the problem. This has been a bad year for Indian cricket. Even though they won in Australia, even though they're still leading in England, the World Cup, and I think outside of the cricket ground, because there have been instances where the senior players have complained to the BCCI. They've complained to the BCCI regarding the team management, lack of communication, the captain wasn't available, and this and that. Nobody knows who's to be blamed for what. But the fact is, the change of captaincy would have happened. I think Virat sensed it, he saw it coming, and he was dignified enough in saying, okay, I'm going. He also assumed that India will do well in the World Cup and they cannot change me as the ODI captain. If India had won the World Cup, would the BCCI still have said, oh, we just need one common captain for both the formats? Then Virat would have stayed on the ODI captain. I think the dressing room was drifting away. And the same pretext on which you've kind of fired Virat Kohli, the BCCI is doing exactly the same. Lack of communication. They should have communicated both with Rohit and Virat while taking the decision. And they've not done that.
Vikrant makes a very important point. You need to step in, have a conversation, because if you allow this to simmer, the fight, imagined or real, keeps getting worse in the heads of the players, in the ecosystem around them, which is constantly feeding good, bad, ugly feedback to these players, even if they're not tracking everything that's being said about them. And that just makes a delicate situation worse.
Was that for me, Rahul?
Yeah, Nikhil.
Yeah, well, listen, I personally feel, communication has got to be the key. Make no mistake about it. And if I remember correctly, I think Saurav Ganguly had spoken to Virat Kohli saying that if you give up your T20 captaincy, it'll be tough for us to keep you as the ODI captain as well, because, and we had this conversation as well, you can't have a T20 captain, then you stick on with another white ball captain and then the test captain as well. You had to just bifurcate the white ball captaincy and a separate red ball captaincy if you were looking to split up in any case. And personally, to me, Rahul, I don't see there's a rift between the two. If there was a rift, Rohit wouldn't have been, being as successful as he has been over the past so many years when he was playing under the captaincy of Virat in any case. And don't forget, and I think personally, Virat also realizes he's on the brink of creating history by going to South Africa. We're one test match away when we go back and play in England to win a test series in England. We beat Australia at home. And then to go out there and beat South Africa in their own backyard. No earlier Indian captain has been able to go out there and conquer the overseas series like Virat Kohli possibly can do. So I personally feel I don't see a rift. And I think these guys are matured in any case. Fair enough if you don't get along, but when you're professional cricketers, bottom line, you wouldn't want to go out there and hurt your careers. And don't forget, this is what you've dreamt of, and this is what you've lived for, to go out there and represent your country. And both of you are on the brink of creating history. So I don't think that even if there's a doubt of any sort of rift, I don't think that drift is that big that neither of them want to go out there and play and be part of the same playing 11.
Mr. Gavaskar, do you find it problematic that Virat Kohli, when he put out that release saying he was stepping away from T20 captaincy, assumed that he would continue to be captain of the one-day squad? I know people within the BCCI who are unhappy with the fact that a player, no matter how great, would assume that he can decide which formats he gets to continue to be captain in and which formats he can step away from.
Yes, perhaps I think, I also saw that release because it was in the public domain. And I think, the way it was put across, maybe that might have upset a few of the powers that be, because over there he says, if I remember correctly, he said, I will continue to lead India in tests and one-day internationals. I think that line could have been perhaps changed. I will continue to be available to lead India in tests and one-day internationals. I think that presumption over there might have actually not helped him. Presumption that he would be the captain for tests and ODIs. That could well have been one of the reasons why there was this little anti-feeling against him. Because otherwise, with the record that he has of winning it just about everywhere. He hasn't won the ICC events, but everywhere else, bilateral events, whether at home or overseas, he has led the Indian team to win. So there was no other no reason for people to be unhappy with his leadership. So maybe that one line might have actually been the cause where some of these things might have started.
Rajdeep, unlike say a Sourav Ganguly who had Dravid, Kumble, Lakshman in the same team and therefore knew that they were worthy contenders apart from him to lead the team, is Virat Kohli facing a situation where he's never had anybody of equal stature since he came in the post-Tendulkar generation? He's been leader of the pack by far. So now recently, because of his wins with the Mumbai Indians, Rohit Sharma has emerged as a captain in his own right. But so far and for the longest time, Kohli was a step above. Therefore, he simply now can't reconcile with the idea that he's been sacked so summarily without anybody extending the courtesy and thanking him for what he's done.
Sure, Rahul, you make a good point. And the fact is the superstar culture has always existed in Indian cricket. And Virat Kohli was the superstar. You could liken him, at his peak to what Amitabh Bachchan was in the late 70s in the film industry. There's Amitabh Bachchan and then there's no one. Similarly, for a long time, it was Virat Kohli. I mean, Virat Kohli was in the post-Tendulkar generation, the dominant figure, or post-Tendulkar Dhoni generation, the dominant figure of Indian cricket. But it's not that. It's the way I come back to it, Rahul. This has always happened. I was just looking at Googling 1958-59. India had 4 test captains in a 5-test series against the West Indies. And there is this incident that I cite in my book, Democracy is 11, where Polly Umrigar was garlanded the evening before, congratulated that he's going to be captain. Next day, somebody else becomes captain.
That's like what happened in the Gujarat chief ministerial race.
I mean, there was a bizarre, there was one bizarre day where I think Vinu Mankad was the captain. He got injured. GS Ramchand was made captain. By the evening, Hemu Adhikari's name had come up. Indian cricket has done crazy things. There was the famous, of course, choice by Vijay Merchant as chairman of the selectors. He had to choose the casting vote between when Patodi was finally replaced after being captain for 9 years. At that time, this is very similar. At that time, nobody thought that the great Mansoor Ali Khan Patodi, who was the big superstar of the 60s, could ever be replaced. So you see, Indian cricket has this superstar syndrome. It has intrigue, palace intrigue, and a lack of transparency in the BCCI. You see, the BCCI is more professional today in terms of, giving players greater commercial, recognizing their commercial value, which they didn't all those years ago. What they haven't changed is their opacity, their lack of transparency. Just like the accusation against the Prime Minister at times is that he doesn't do press conferences, neither does the BCCI. So all of us are discussing something in the absence of the selectors telling us what is their mind, in the absence of the BCCI telling us what is, they will send a terse press release. That's not good enough. So the world must change.
Soon Mr. Gavaskar will accuse us of mixing our cricketing and political metaphors, which he did last time. So I'm staying away from that. But Kirti Azad has played a bit of cricket and politics. So tell me this. Would you accept that the BCCI needs to be far more transparent and communicative about what they're thinking and why. You can't just say, "Main isko hata dunga," off with his head, he's gone, his time is over, I have a new plan. These are people involved, human beings with emotions. You need to carry them along.
Sure, and after they have done such human service, as Rajdeep was saying, it was like the Amitabh Bachchan on a cricket field for so many years. So whenever a certain thing happens like this, and somebody who's really big and good, I mean, I know nobody's indispensable, but then you should have good communication with the player. It's not only that you should be commercially really good, high and happy. I feel that you have to be emotionally correct even with players, because players too are emotional people. And I think players are basically emotional fools. We get carried away with our emotions. So when a situation as such comes in, people should, the administrators in the BCCI should understand and know as to what can happen and what repercussion can take place. And hence they should be ready with it. Because again, I come to the same point. If he had already told the BCCI that he's not available for T20 and he's not available for the one-day games in South Africa, this is all before the fiasco. And now all the thing about the rift that is coming out, again, I mean, didn't Azharuddin know about it? That this, he had already spoken about that he won't be available for the one-day games. So who's creating this rift? Those who just want to have some good time on social media, have a little bit of a fame, and that's about it. I'm such a great player like Azhar doing that. Doesn't look nice.
No, he did not
so
say
I would
it was
again
a
say.
He didn't really say
He
it was
said
a
it sparks
rift. You know, he
speculation.
said A plus B, the timing of it. He said the timing of it suggests that there is a rift. Please come out in the open and give some clarity. I think the tweet was something like that. He never said that there's a rift.
Clarity would come if you had a system.
Exactly.
No, the clarity would come like in Australia, where you take a decision, you give a reason for it. You know, there's someone who fronts up and says, this is the reason why we made the change. I tell you, going back in history, Farooq Engineer, all these years later, now in his 80s, still says, I don't know why I wasn't made captain in 1975 against West Indies, because the evening before I was told I was going to be captain, next day Venkat Raghavan becomes captain. Till this day, all 40 years later, he still has this grouse in his mind. Why wasn't I told why I was not made captain the next day? So you see, Indian cricket has always been opaque. And it is, and I think that, in these times when things are so professional otherwise, surely a press conference where you answer these basic questions. Why have you gone from Kohli to Sharma? There's a perfectly logical reason to explain why Rohit Sharma is the white ball. Just make it logical and tell people.
And also, I suppose captaincy is nobody's birthright. I mean, you've got every right to change the captain, provided there's a reason. Virat never allowed you any reason on the cricket field in terms of the number of victories that India had in all the three formats. He's going to be the most successful test captain ever, probably, when he finishes. One days, T20s, he did well. But it was the lack of important tournaments or key games. And I think it wasn't just the lack of results, Rahul, like I said. I think within the dressing room, there was a feeling that he had alienated himself.
Why? How?
He, maybe like Rajdeep said, the superstar culture, he thought maybe he was the one. And there were younger players in the team who felt they needed a pat on their back, and at times Virat wasn't there. Backing Hardik Pandya to the extent that the same Hardik Pandya who's not playing cricket now, mid-December, saying that I'll only start playing when I'm fit, played in the World Cup. The selectors wanted to change him. Virat said, no, I want him in the seat. And there have been other cricketing logics as well.
Two guys who mastered the art.
Leadership.
You've got Mr. Gavaskar. Very interestingly, one should ask him, he actually left the captaincy at the top because he won the 1985 Champions of Champions cricket tournament.
But he had announced
and said that had announced before that this is it.
By
so he left
scaling
at
the wall
top.
of a hotel in Chandigarh.
And you've got MS Dhoni, who was perhaps clever enough also to realize that maybe things were not going well for him now in overseas when India was losing, and on his own decided enough is enough. So captains have to be willing to do that.
Rajdeep, Dhoni again, I think the third test match of a difficult tour in Australia.
Maybe he should not have done it.
He should have completed the series.
No, but that's what they say about Mr. Gavaskar. He left when people were asking why he's going.
That's right.
Rather than when people start asking why he's not going and when will he finally go.
But it would be interesting to ask Mr. Gavaskar that. Giving up the captaincy at that time or announcing, was that something because you felt better to leave when I'm on top rather than be pushed out one day?
No, I think it was coming to a situation where I realized that, there was only so much that I could do as a captain and give to my team, only so much. And fresher ideas were needed at that stage. And because, the game was changing, the game was becoming a little more faster. You needed a younger person at the helm. And that was one of the reasons. Of course, the delay in appointing me as captain for that particular series, the World Championship of Cricket in 1985, that 1 or 2 hours meeting. I think actually probably was more than that. 2 hours meeting where the selection committee, had their questions. So that also was a point that sort of made me think, hello, if the selection committee is not convinced that if they can take so much time, then maybe I should. But I should maybe move aside. But also at that particular point of time, I was also getting the feeling that Indian cricket needed a younger brain, somebody with contemporary ideas about the game.
How do you respond to the point about Virat, maybe in his head, being engulfed with this idea of being a superstar? Is Kohli guilty of fostering a superstar ecosystem around him? Is that just inevitable, or should he have read the writing on the wall more clearly and earlier?
You asking me?
Yes, Mr. Gavaskar, I am.
Hello?
Yes, sir, I am.
No, I'm not sure what is going on in the Indian change room. I'm not really privy to what is happening. What's the situation in the change room? I do believe that what he has done for Indian cricket has been unbelievable.
Sure.
And quite clearly, everybody's time comes when he has to maybe move aside. I believe that Virat Kohli has 2 years at least of leadership in him, if not more, in all formats of the game. But then if the BCCI has decided that there should be 2 different captains, that is also fine. That's not an issue with me. What it'll do is, like everybody else, I am also convinced that it'll actually mean more hundreds coming from his bat in the white ball format. He hasn't got a T20 100. I'm pretty certain that T20 100 will also come in because of the fact that the burden of leadership has been taken away from him.
Nikhil, what does this do when you've got 2 players of the likes of Kohli and Sharma, captains in different formats, who are equally good across formats? Will it foster a sense of competition that now that I have a chance in T20, Rohit Sharma thinks, let me go out and do as best as I can? And the same with Kohli in the longer format? Or do you think it just makes things slightly trickier to handle and manage? It's like walking on a fine rope.
I don't think that later is going to be the issue. I don't think it's going to be tricky, but yeah, to be honest, if it gets competitive, hey, nobody's going to complain. You get hundreds from Rohit and you get hundreds from Virat. If they have a competition going between themselves, who's going to benefit? Team India. I take that any day of the week. But to be honest, I think they're all well past that. I think they're playing, they're looking, they get starts, they're looking to win games for India, to go out there and win as many matches as they possibly can. Rohit has played under Virat. Virat is, going to be playing under Rohit. And the kind of record that Virat has got in white ball cricket as well. With Rohit, Rohit, the number of double hundreds that he's got in the 50-over format. Virat, the number of hundreds he's got in a winning cause in a 50-over format is absolutely mind-boggling. The number of games that he's won for India as well. And I just hope that he continues to go out there and keep on doing that, because we still got 2 World Cups, the T20 and the 50-over format in the next 24 odd months, or possibly less. The T20 is just around the corner, and then 2023 is the 50-over format as well. To be honest, I think Rahul, we're looking to dive in a little too deep into this whole rift thing. I personally know a little bit of both of them. I don't see that there's such a big rift that they don't want to be playing with each other, to be very honest. It's just a matter of timing at that moment in time. And I'm not even sure if Virat Kohli, I was reading somewhere that he's actually put in a request that he wanted a break from the one days. Rohit, of course, unfortunately that his hamstrings given away as well, because I'm sure the kind of batsman that he is, and he's somebody who wanted to keep on wearing the whites and keep on continuing doing well in the test format because that has been so close to him. And we've seen how, beautifully he's been able to transform his game as well from white ball to red ball, how successful he was in difficult conditions in England as well. So to be honest, he must be feeling really bad with that injury, not being able to be going and playing in South Africa and probably looking to create history.
Kirti Azad, in conclusion, what do you think should happen next? How do we resolve this fight? Tell the world that there's no fire. You may see some smoke, but that's just hot air. There is no fire below. How should this matter be resolved?
Well, I think they should be a little more clear about the entire thing, the administration. Secondly, if either of them don't play under each other purposely, they are the people who are going to lose. I mean, you'll play that many less matches. You'll have that many less opportunities to score runs or to prove your mettle that you're a world-class player. So I don't think so. This is anything is there. And if at all anything is there, it should be resolved immediately. And that's what my final point is. Both are two great cricketers. I love enjoying watching them when they play, when they're in their full flow. And God bless them. They have a long life and have a very good series ahead in South Africa.
Very quickly, Mr. Gavaskar, if you were in the BCCI at this moment and you just watched this show on India Today television, you've seen what's being said by the pundits. What do you think Messrs. Jay Shah and Sourav Ganguly should be doing next?
What I think they should be doing is, in case nothing of this is happening, they should be asking the person who has come out with this story, where did he get this story? Maybe speaking to the editor of that publication from where the story has come. Because again, there was a story earlier on. Remember, before the New Zealand series started, emanating that, Rohit Sharma is going to be the test captain. What happened? Rohit didn't even play both the test matches. So, I mean, these are all stories that come out, which is fine. And I don't think Sourav Ganguly and Jay Shah should even be interested in replying to it. They should actually just look at it and just turn away and say, this is another story. That's what I would advise them. Just ignore it, guys.
For once, I don't agree with Mr. Gavaskar.
And also ignore.
For once, I don't agree with Mr. Gavaskar. I think the BCCI owes it to cricket fans to come out with an explanation as to what is happening. There is this tendency, the media, shoot the messenger. Media response. Who's telling these stories to the media?
The BCCI problem also is that...
Rajdeep, let me tell you one thing. If you don't agree with me,
Sir.
Rajdeep, if you don't agree with me, doesn't matter. I won't lose sleep over it.
I was very nervous even saying that. For once I don't agree with Mr. Gavaskar.
There will be clarity tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Virat will address the press conference, the pre-tour press conference. But again, intrigue. Rahul Dravid is not going to be part of that. Normally, it's the captain and the coach who address the media. But it's going to be a tough press conference for Virat. There would be some... questions.
Another rift.
So the answers could be uncomfortable for many people. Virat would be asked, did Sourav actually tell you not to quit as the T20 captain? Did the BCCI speak to you before sacking you? And also, are you going to South Africa? I think he will go. I think now he'll go.
Yeah, you should just watch this show and say it's not worth it. Let's prove these guys wrong. Let's go pad up.
Two things will test Indian cricket in the next 2 years, Rahul. Rohit Sharma's fitness. He's been appointed the captain till the end of the World Cup at least, to 2023, which is 2 years from now. His fitness is really not up to the mark.
Why?
I mean, his hamstring, every 12 months you can't have your hamstring have some kind of problem. The hamstring normally takes a lot of time. His fitness, and I think Virat Kohli's motivation. Was somebody who thrived on being an aggressive captain. While he's not the captain anymore, does he retain his aggression? Is he motivated enough? I think that will be his test and India's test.
And also, I think if you look around the world, except for Kane Williamson, I don't think there is any other team where the white ball and the red ball captain are the same individual at the moment. Most teams now have a split captaincy. It's the way forward.
Babar Azam in
but
Pakistan.
Indians don't want to, we have this, why blame Virat for being the superstar? We like superstars. We, the fans, elevate these cricketers into superstars. We can't have the idea of a split captaincy means, usko kamzor kar diya.
But I think captaincy will also have that shelf life. You go to a chemist shop.
Of course.
You look at the expiry date for any medicine that you have.
What's wrong with a split captaincy? It's
it's perfect.
It's new. It's the new world. We old Indians, including me, old cricket fans, ek aadmi hona chahiye. Who will run the dressing room. That's
when
the
there's
problem.
one person in politics,
Rajiv,
Rajdeep doesn't like that. But
maybe
one person in cricket he's fine with. But that's a matter for another debate. This is where we end. I'm out of time.
Rohit Sharma as the captain was the
Just
best
1
thing.
minute.
You did justice. But you know, justice is best served when you tell the other person and the people involved
And
that
in
there's
South
justice which is
Africa,
being
ideally
done.
we want Kohli and Rohit to be padding up at the same time. It's a tough tour. We
Just
want
1
to
minute,
win.
1 minute.
Sir ji, khatam ho gaya time. Very quickly,
Kirti
10
has half a
seconds.
minute.
Okay, Kirti Azad, 10 seconds. sir.
If you want to see camaraderie, if you want to see oneness, you go and watch that movie 83 releasing on 24th when he won the World Cup for the
Sir,
first
आप
time.
अपनी
When he
PR
was
और
there,
कर रहे हो. चलो
inspired
ठीक है ये भी. कीर्ति आजाद is like, okay, let me just do one sixer of my own. Let me plug my
Sunny Bhai is
movie.
also part of that movie, by the way.
Sunny Bhai is very classy and dignified. Kirti has got the second line going. Don't forget my movie. We've been stuck in the studio, so yes, we do look forward to that. And what a celebration that is, and that's how you want teams to come together, play, and be world champions. Thank you so much for joining me on the Newstrack. I'll have more for you on the other side. Stay with us.